All right, so I just thought of a quote that you had that always struck me about the NFL. You said pigs get fat, hogs go to slaughter.
Yeah, go to slaughter.
Okay, now we're sitting here.
Gambling changed a lot of that. Gambling changed a lot of that.
A lot of that. But let's flip it. The NBA ratings have taken a little bit of a dip.
Totally different, right?
Right.
Totally different. I mean, so people in your audience, cord cutters. Right? If your show's on television, ain't nobody watching it, right? Because it's an older audience on traditional TV. And that's what's happened to us. We've got a much younger audience. If you look at the average viewer's age for the NFL, it's like Fox Network, right? It's like 67 years old. I don't know exactly, right? It's in the 60s. Whereas with the NBA, it's a much younger audience that cuts the cord. So if you look at our streaming numbers, they're really, really good. If you look at our social media numbers that we're starting to get paid more and more for, they're really, really, really good. And so, our numbers are down primarily on TNT, which doesn't have as much carriage and as much linked to younger audiences or even middle-aged audiences as ESPN does. So our ESPN games are doing okay, right? They're flat to up a little bit, and with Zion being back and everything, they're going to be up even more. But on TNT, it's not as good, and the NFL is all on broadcast, right? And that makes a big difference.
Do you think there's anything? So I've heard a million different theories. Players moving around where the guys don't stay with the same team.
I mean, look at the NFL. Career. Nobody stays other than the quarterback. Nobody stays.
That's fair. The competitive. The Warriors and LeBron obviously have shared titles. And everyone
because we have so many Warriors games scheduled, right? We have Warriors games and Pelicans games scheduled for Zion, and they're all hurt.
Right.
And that's going to fuck you up.
But are you nervous at all about the length of the season?
No.
You're not nervous about, like, you flip on an NBA game? Because, I watch the NBA. I watch pretty much every Bulls game. But if I flip on a random game on a Tuesday night in February, there are times when you can tell it's not always, max effort. And also doesn't feel, the NFL always feels life or death because it's 17 weeks.
Yeah, but it is and it isn't, right? When teams are 3-3. Right, when the Bears start off 2-5, and
you panic.
You say they panic, it's over.
Right. No, still in the hunt.
Depending on what division you're in, right? It's not looking good.
Yes.
Right. There's a chance, but it's just not. The thing about football on TV, it's on broadcast, so that's important because everybody can get it, right? Streaming, whatever, anybody, doesn't cost you anything. 2, you only have to watch 12 minutes. You can do anything else you want during an NFL game. You can write a novel, you can go on a date, and it doesn't matter because there's only 12 minutes of action. In an NBA game, it's a little bit harder because you're watching 48 minutes of action. There's always something going on, right? And NHL doesn't translate well to TV, but it's kind of got the same thing. It's 60 minutes of action, right? And so to stay with the whole game, it's a commitment. The NFL is no commitment to watch. You're watching your fantasy league more than you're watching, because you got all that downtime and all that dead time. That's the difference. So I'll give you an example. If an NBA game was 20 minutes,
right,
and we played 150 of them, you wouldn't care, right? Because those 20 minutes are going to be jacked the whole time. Right. So it's not the number of games, right? It's the fact that it's a 48-minute commitment. Now, so rather than shorter games, should we consider 40 minutes? I don't know. That's something to consider. I think the guys would be upset because it changes playing time and all that.
It changes historical stuff.
And stats and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And so it still works. And part 2 to that is when you go to a game. Like if you look at the NFL, and I haven't seen their latest attendance, but it hasn't been great. Right? Because going to a game is a full commitment.
Yeah.
You go to an NBA game, it's a blast.
It is, and it's 2.5 hours. It's true.
And it's 2.5 hours, and it's not bad, right? And it's something going on all the time.
So how much do you watch, like, the growth, the decline of every major sport? How much are you tuned into it?
It's my business. I'm very tuned in. I pay attention to all that stuff, right? Because it's my business, and I always try to find angles and different ways of combining information or looking at different ways. So, having a conversation like this, it's not like everybody's writing that the NFL is 12 minutes of action and the NBA is 48 minutes of action, right? They're saying they just look at the total viewers. Total viewers isn't really a reflection of anything, right? No one talks about the average age of the audience. No one talks about the minutes consumed in social media. You don't look on social media on Instagram and see a shitload of football.
No, it's true.
Right. You don't see baseball. You don't see hockey. What do you see in all your highlights? You watch more high school highlights on, Dunkademics and Ball is Life and everything else than you watch.
Really cool websites.
What's that?
Dunkademics and Ball is Life.
Yeah.
Those are real websites?
Well,
Yeah,
Ball
there's-
is Life.
They sound
Yeah, Ball
awesome.
is
I mean,
Life.
Ball is Life,
right?
Yeah, right. Like,
yeah,
I'm
they're
agreeing.
Instagram, and I don't know if they got websites, but they're on Instagram, right?
Right.
It's interesting that you brought up Major League Baseball because they are very strict about what you can post on social media.
Yeah, they're fucked.
Like you can't take a highlight of your screen. You can't record it and post it. They'll shut your account down because their logic is they want to monetize all those views through their own proprietary feeds. The NBA is the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And so why is that strategy worked out for you guys? Like why is Major League Baseball, do you think, so dead set about doing it their way?
Major League Baseball, I mean, Rob Bowman, the new guy, is a little bit better. But when they had Bud Selig, it was 1927 every year, right? He had no clue about what was going on, besides the fact he wanted to keep me out, and I think he's an idiot.
Yeah, that pissed me off.
Yeah, well, I'm
You wanted
kind
to
of
buy the
happy now.
Cubs, yeah.
Free
Yeah.
cubes.
Yeah.
What's
Free
that?
cubes. Hashtag free cubes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
free cubes, right? And the Rangers, and before the Pirates. But in any event, like, so with the NBA, we're able to monetize that because we do licensing deals with Twitter, and we do them with Instagram and all platforms, right? And those numbers are going up because they're making money off of advertising, and we'll make more and more and more money from that. But more importantly, like all of our players, you know who they are. Not just the big names like LeBron and everything, but you know, they come in, now they're coming into the game because of their social media followings as brands.
Right.
Zion, you know, everybody was a big name before he even got there, right? And kids have their own, you know, they'll have 200, 300, a million social media followers before they even get to college, right? And then by the time they get out of college, we know who these guys were, you know, because they're dunking or whatever. And so by the time they get to the NBA, they have a following. And the difference between the NBA and all these other leagues is our players drive the league. We give them the ability to talk about themselves, about anything they want. It could be political, it could be game, it could be whatever you want, and that builds a following, and that connects fans. Add to that 2K, right? If you're playing 2K and you're building your teams, right, you know almost every player in the league. Right? If you pick the Mavs, you know 1 through 15. If you bounce around because of your friends, you know 1 through 15 of any team you're working with, right? Who's playing MLB, right? Who's playing NHL? Who's playing even NFL, you know, Madden or whatever.
Madden's still big.
It's big, but you don't know all the players.
Yeah.
Right? There's 53. You're playing, you know, whoever. You don't even know who's playing.
Yeah.
And so you know our guys. They drive our following. And so that's why when you look at the ratings, we're building basketball fans, right? Unfortunately, because they don't get traditional cable and television and satellite, we're not converting them. We're not keeping as many of them because they're cutting the cord, but they're not becoming NBA fans. Whereas you looked at the NFL, if they lose people from football, from TV, I mean, they got fantasy, and you got gambling.
Obviously,
Yeah, you
is
got
the biggest
gambling.
with football.
But there's you don't know. I mean, I was at a thing earlier today, and I'm meeting all these football players that I knew by name. I had no idea who they were
Couldn't
by looking
recognize
at them.
Right.
So
Right.
it sounds like you're making the bargain that it's worth it to get people invested in your product. You might not be monetizing it as efficiently as you could right now.
Right.
But it's better to have those people
As fans.
for life, and you'll figure out how to gradually improve things.
You always want to disrupt yourself.
Ooh.
You've
That's
right,
a quote.
before you let somebody else do it for you. You know,
Eat a
and
big
so,
bowl of chili.
Yeah, right.
Right.
And so you got to understand what's coming your way, and we know social is always going to be evolving, you know, and we're going to be right there, and we're going to connect the fans however they want to connect. The NFL, again, if you look at the average age on television, it keeps on getting older. You know, now they still have a bigger audience than the 18 to 49, right, which is like the TV money pot than we do, a much bigger audience, but it's getting closer. I'll give you a perfect example, not to get too much in the weeds, but like Shark Tank. Shark Tank used, for 18 to 49, we used to try to pull a 2.0 5-6 years ago. Now we pull a 0.8, which is good for broadcast television. The NBA and ESPN used to be that the NBA and ESPN, you know, pulling 2 million people was good, and we'd pull a 0.8, you know, maybe a 1.2 in the demo, 18 to 49. It would never be conceivable that a broadcast or a game on cable would match what Shark Tank would do. Never
Right.
in a million years. Now we both do 0.8s, 0.7s, 0.8s, right? So we're holding on to audiences better at the NBA, particularly younger audiences, than even broadcast television is. So even though it might not, you know, when you look at total viewers, that's distorting. It's not telling the whole story.